surrounding yourself with like-minded people who are doing things you want to do is one of the biggest tips I could leave with people. You don't take advice from someone who doesn't have their own business and has never started their own business because they're not in your shoes. They don't know what you're going through. But really surrounding yourself with people is the biggest thing. And then building a support system of some kind, whether that's for business or personal or both.
This is the Fit Investor Podcast, where we talk about how to live a more holistic life of being fit, not only financially, but physically and faithfully. We'll be joined by experts in all these areas to share their experiences and actionable and practical tips so that you can be a fit investor too. So now let's join our hosts, Cale Delaney and Brenna Carls.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of The Fit Investor. I'm your host, Cale Delaney, and today our special guest is Mrs. Jen LeViseur. And Jen she's a fellow hospitable host. She's in the short-term rental industry. And 2017, her and her husband, Ryan, they launched their first STR in the up-and-coming market of Northwest Arkansas. And within the first year of operating, they launched 2 more, became repeat Airbnb Superhosts, and then in a few short years, they grew from 1 to 15 short-term rentals. After successfully running their own STRs, Ryan and Jen were approached by many other investors to manage and co-host. So now they work together to help others analyze, buy, and rent STRs in Northwest Arkansas, San Antonio, and Dallas through their STR management and co-hosting business. Jen also works full-time as a stay-at-home mom and homeschools their 3 boys when she's not interfacing with the STR management and co-hosting clients. Prior to that, Jen worked in marketing in the event, nonprofit, financial, and association industries, and she applies that marketing knowledge, communication skills, and lead generation experience from the corporate world to her STR business. And excitingly enough, Jen is a relatively newcomer to Christianity, and so we are excited to explore that with her as well. So Jen, welcome to the Fit Investor.
Awesome. Thanks, Cale. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. So you have a lot going on. Not only are you handling the kids and handling the household, but you've got your STR management business, your co-hosting, and a whole bunch of other stuff, I'm sure. So why don't you take us through your journey a little bit. Tell us a little bit about how you got to where you are.
Sure. So I grew up in Texas. Actually, Ryan and my husband, we grew up in the same town, a small town. We worked at the same movie theater together. We were not high school sweethearts, but we reconnected when I was in college and he was in the Marine Corps. And then after college, I did what you're supposed to do, right? Get that 9-to-5 job and sit in traffic for an hour every day. We lived in Austin. And so I worked in marketing for 10 plus years, just managing different departments in various different organizations. And then we had our first son, and I always knew I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. Just my mom was also a stay-at-home mom. And so when I did have him, it was like, okay, yes, that's definitely what I want to do, is really stay home with him and be able to nurture, not miss out on anything with him. And so that really started our journey of exploring avenues for us to become financially free and for Ryan not to have to work. He still does have a W-2, but that was really the catalyst when we had our first son. We actually started selling products on Amazon. That was one of our first side hustles. And we actually launched a baby blanket company that sold on Amazon. And then after that, I started to do some consulting work and had a website design agency. So I did that for a while. And we were always trying to find different ways to bring in additional income that would eventually become our primary income.
Right.
And so around, 2016, Ryan attended a conference for Amazon sellers, and one of the guys there was talking about short-term rentals. And so he was in California, and he said, short-term rentals is the first business I've done where I was profitable in the first month that I started. And we were like, that's interesting. During that time, we actually were getting ready to move to Northwest Arkansas. And when we moved, I was pregnant with our second child. So we had a lot going on. We decided to jump into short-term rentals. And we actually started a little bit unconventionally in the rental arbitrage space. Our first deal was a single family home that we rented from a landlord. And that really, it took off. And then we rented a few more in Bentonville, which is where we live. And then after that, we launched 10 in Dallas. So it just snowballed, and now we're managing for other people as well as have our own. Ryan still has the W-2 job because it's pretty flexible and he gets to work from home. And so we're really hold on to that while we build up this management side of our business. And so in between all that, I am also managing my household. I'm also homeschooling my children and just trying to figure it all out, right?
Wow. That is a lot. That is a lot.
Yeah.
And what does your husband do for his W-2 currently?
He is in cybersecurity.
Okay.
Hmm.
That's a good business.
It is. Yep.
Businesses that will probably never go away.
Yeah. Yes. He's definitely our tech guy. It's great to have him on the team because he is very operational and system focused. And I'm more of our front facing business development person for our
Okay.
business.
Got it.
So
So how, being that you two work together in the business, how did that kind of come to fruition? Did you guys start out with the intent that we want to do this together, or did it just organically grow into that? Or how did that work out?
So I think it was Brian initially that he went to that conference and was learning from this guy. And then I think I want to let's try this out. And we joined a mastermind together. And then we decided from that point forward, we would be doing this together, which has worked out really well because, like I said, we balance each other out. He's very much an introvert
Mhm.
and I'm not. And then he is very good, again, at the more detail systems, operational stuff.
Okay.
So we're a good partnership. It's a good match.
Yeah. Okay. That's good. So yeah, you guys have complementary skills and personalities. So it sounds like maybe it was a little bit easier to find your individual lanes and split up the duties there.
Yeah. Yeah, for
Excellent.
sure.
What advice would you perhaps have to couples that are looking to get into business together?
I think it's really just getting on the same page and sitting down with each other to determine what your goals are first. And those can be month goal, 5-year plan, whatever. But as long as you're on the same page and then really checking in with each other on a weekly basis or more if you can. And like you said, having those definitive roles so that there's not confusion and overlap because that can be really frustrating. One person's trying to do walk on what the other one is doing. So just really communication is the biggest thing I think for us. We're really
Right.
good about communicating with each other and two-way street of, hey, this is what I'm doing and this is what I'm doing. And I think that's what's been the best for us.
Yeah. What about keeping business and personal? Do you guys ever get into situations where there's perhaps a business disagreement, but you guys have to try to keep that separate from the personal side of things?
Fortunately, we don't get in that many disagreements. Fortunately, we've been together for, 20 years now. Not married 20 years, but we've been together 20 years. I think we just know each other so well that I can anticipate like if there's going to be an issue and vice versa.
Right.
So fortunately, and if there is issues, like, yes, we can keep it separate. This is our personal life and this is our business. I'm a little bit, I have a harder time emotionally detaching from business stuff.
Mhm.
And Ryan is really good about that. Like I tend to dwell on things a lot more. So he's really good at just being like, it doesn't matter. It's not about you or because of you. You have to keep that separate.
And I imagine, are you the one handling the guest communications at this point, or?
We have virtual assistants that
Okay.
help us with that. Yeah. We still do it sometimes because they're not on call all week. But for the most part, it is them. And then we fill in where we need to.
Okay, got it. I'm going to pick your brain a little bit because I'm hiring my first VAs at this point as well. But
Right.
so what do you just have? First off, how many do you have? Do you have one or more?
So we have two
Okay.
right now. And we have it so that there's coverage starting Wednesday afternoon and then it goes through Sunday. So like Wednesday all day and then Sunday all day. So overnight as well. So we
Okay,
just don't have coverage on Monday and Tuesday essentially.
got it. Okay.
Hmm. So
Is
one has
there
the day shift and one has the overnight.
okay? Is there a reason you chose that schedule versus trying to have everyday coverage, but perhaps not overnight?
So I definitely wanted overnight just because I did not want to have to deal with any more, not that we have a lot of issues in the wee hours of the morning, but I did not want to deal with that anymore at all.
Right.
So we were just trying to figure out like we wanted to do full time for each of them. And so we were just trying to figure out how to work that in. Like we could have done like Thursday to Tuesday or something or Thursday to Monday, but we
Right.
just did Wednesday to Sunday because we
Got
felt like that was when most of our people were most active. Our guests were most active on there and communicating with us.
Okay. And at what point did you decide to hire VAs?
So we did it, I think we've had them for about 2 years now. So it took us a few years because we needed to have enough cash flow to afford them, or we wanted to. And so it just that point where it was like, it was just too much to have to try to manage all of the guest communication when you have 20 plus properties,
Right.
doing it yourself. And then with the kids, and then I think I was probably pregnant or nursing or whatever in between that. I did not want to deal with people
Right.
that much in odd hours of the day. So
Gotcha. Okay, good. And how did you go about finding them?
we
Did you
worked
go
with
with the agency or
yeah, we worked with a virtual staff finder is the one that we've used to
okay,
source VAs. And it was a really easy process. Some of the companies, they want to manage your VA the entire time. We prefer when we go to the agency, they present us with candidates and then they just drop them over to us instead of them managing them the rest of the time. And it's also more cost effective that way too.
right.
More like
Absolutely.
a direct hire than working through the company.
Yep, absolutely. Very cool. And any training tips with bringing on VAs new or how to create your SOPs and that type of thing?
Loom is your best friend. Just recording lots of videos of you doing the different tasks you want them to do. And then eventually they can be the ones to create the SOPs for you. You just create a note with the details and then they can do it themselves. I think the best advice was you do it and they watch you, and
Right.
then you do it and watch them.
Mm,
And then it's continuous training as well.
right.
But that was something that we definitely had to get used to, especially because ours are overseas. So there is that language. They're great at English, but sometimes there's the nuances that you have to train into people because of that. So just really training. You can't just give them something and expect them to run with it necessarily without really working with them. So
Yeah. And one thing that I'm trying to sort out as well is, as I'm sure, just because perhaps, especially the DA may be on the clock for 8 or 9 hours a day or whatever, there's a lot of downtime throughout that period in this industry. And trying to come up with how do I still ensure that they're productive or bringing value during that full shift, right? Do you have any suggestions or things that you do for that?
yes, I'm actually in the process of creating some videos for one of our VAs to do our social media.
Okay.
So that's something that she'll be able to do. And then that'll keep her busy. She's our overnight VA. That'll keep her busy. And then we have them do some random like research projects, like prospecting for clients,
Mm,
finding some listings that could be performing better and building out a Google sheet of those addresses for us. So then we can start reaching out to those people. They are now creating the listings for us. So when we onboard a new property, they're able to do that for us. I think another thing will be how important it is now, especially with Airbnb, to make sure your listings are a living thing, essentially, where you're updating them at least once or twice a week. So going in there and actually like making changes, whether that be shifting around pictures or adding a different title, just little things like that in these little things that add up that like we don't have time to do anymore. So
right.
really just like creating a list of all the tasks that you're doing would be, I think, the best thing for you to do. And then figure out what you can offload to them. Because we're also going to try, not going to try, we are going to start having them interface with our vendors and cleaners so
Right.
that they'll be managing all of that as
Excellent.
well.
And are there any softwares in particular that you use or find helpful with the VAs besides the standard tech stack for STRs, but any organizational softwares or communication softwares that you use in particular?
So we use Slack for communication, which I think a lot of people in this space use that for their teams, which is great. It's very simple to use. And then so Ryan, he's a cybersecurity guy, but he also does some coding. So he really likes Airtable for like automations and entering data that we have.
Okay.
And then we're looking at using monday.com for task management because we don't really have a good task management
Right.
platform right now. And he wanted to build that out in Airtable, but I think it might be easier just to go ahead and use Monday instead.
Got it. And then what about for calls? Do you use like Google Voice or Open Phone or what's your?
We use Open Phone. Yeah,
Yeah,
we like that. We have our business line and then we have the guest line. So they handle the guest line and then we handle the main business line.
got it. Okay. All right. Excellent. And so your current portfolio, what does it look like?
So I think we're about to hit 20. So we still have some arbitrage units that are ours. And then we did get rid of some of them. So we've got some arbitrage. We have one that we own in San Antonio, and then the rest are managed properties.
Got it. Okay.
hmm
And what's your take on the different strategies between arbitrage, ownership, and co-hosting? What's the reason that you chose to focus, seems more so on co-hosting than any of the others?
Definitely less risk. So that has been the big thing with arbitrage. So it was a great way to get into the game, I think, and I'm glad that we did it. Probably wouldn't do it again. It was great. Like back in 2016, I feel like the numbers made sense back then. Whereas now, like rents are just so much higher. And even with working with individual property owners or independent property owners, they are now trying to charge more per month to an arbitrage person just because they're using it for a business. When in reality, they should be getting fair market value because we are a better tenant than a long-term tenant. I would prefer to just do management and co-hosting right now and start purchasing more properties.
Right. Got it. Okay. And is that you started out with the arbitrage you mentioned is a good way to get into it. What was your mindset when you guys were first getting started? Did you have that business model in mind that you wanted to transition into the co-hosting, or were you planning on just purchasing properties, or what was the mindset going in and what made it change if it did?
I think the mindset going in was let's start the arbitrage, stack some cash, and then buy. And it took me a while to convince Ryan to do the co-hosting and management because we were getting people who asked us about it. And he was pretty adamant for a while that that's not really our model. We don't want to do that. And I think after talking for a while, he realized that I think there is something there because again, there's no risk. We're taking on these properties, we're getting a percentage of the monthly revenue, and you just rinse and repeat, right? It's just, I feel like that's such a better way to grow than it was to do the arbitrage.
Yeah, sure. And so you guys still plan on starting purchasing, or you think you're going to focus more on just continuing to grow the co-hosting?
So right now, we have the property in San Antonio that we own, but we're actually refocusing and we would like to buy a hotel this year. So we are focusing a lot on expanding our management portfolio. And so that is really what I'm focusing on. And we really just made that decision last summer. So
Yeah.
we added on I don't know, 10, 15 management clients since July of last year. And so we're just hitting the ground with that. And then we're looking for hotels right now.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Okay, great.
Hey guys, it's Brenna Carl, CEO and co founder of The Mortgage Shop. When I'm not spending my time searching for the best pizza in town, working out, well, because of pizza, or fighting sharks, as Kale likes to say, I spend my time educating clients on the best investment products that will help them build generational wealth and making sure their loan process is as smooth as warm butter on a piece of toast. Call us today to get started with your investment journey at 800-816-7982 or, to talk more about pizza. Talk to you soon.
And what's the reason for the transition to the hotels?
As a lot of places are now cracking down on the short-term rental operation, there are obviously are still great markets that you can get deals in, and the regulations are common sense and not crazy. But we just feel like we would love to have more in that commercial space, have something in the commercial space that is also part of the hospitality space. And so the hotel just seems like a really great marriage of the two. And then we're really looking for one that we can get a great deal on and then do renovations on it.
Gotcha. Very cool. Excellent. And so with the co-hosting, it seems you've been growing it steadily. What is what advice would you have for somebody who's looking to maybe make that transition into co-hosting? How do they start getting clients? What are some good prospecting tips?
So Facebook groups are your best friend. Join all of your local Facebook groups and then just start providing value in those groups. So create different topics to post on different days, maybe pricing strategy or, how to hire a cleaning team or whatever, things like that you can really provide value. And then you'll see that people get super engaged. And then when they have a question, they'll actually just message you and ask you about it. And then as you talk to them and get to know them and build that relationship, then sometimes they'll want to know more about your management services. And then honestly, our Google business page has been like a big thing. Like we've been getting a lot of organic traffic just from our website that people contact us. And then really building relationships with realtors in the area as well have been good because then they refer us business. I've tried to do a lot of things that I could do more remotely and not do so much in-person stuff, but honestly, the best management clients we've received have been from relationships with realtors and just really building connections with people, right? Which I think is so important too. It's just,
Yeah.
we get so focused on we're living in this digital age, and so how much of it can we do online?
Right.
But I think it's really important to remember that like we're human and connection is what we crave. And I think that's awesome. That's a great way to get in front of people.
No, absolutely. I mean, it's excellent advice. So how do you balance it all then with not only you're taking care of the kids, but you're homeschooling them as well? So how do you do it? How do you balance all that?
Yeah, I've had to just get really good at like figuring out, okay, being very regimented with the schedule and saying, okay, Monday is our day that we have some appointments and go to school and then work in. We like to do play dates with our friends. We do other extracurricular activities like swim class and baseball right now. So just really being strategic with our time. And then we have a fantastic babysitter who comes and helps me definitely once a week, sometimes more, just so I get a good stretch of hours that I'm not interrupted to do some of the business stuff.
Right. Got it. Excellent. And with the homeschooling, so this is something that my wife and I had started looking into, but do you do it solely yourself or do you do it as part of a co-op? Because I know there's schooling co-ops that are out there and that type of thing, or through an online program, or like how do you do the homeschooling?
So I use a curriculum called The Good and the Beautiful. And so it's just, I love that it's just workbooks. We limit screen time a lot in our house. So
Yeah.
I do prefer to do the course books. And then we are in a co-op and there are ones that have classes. This one is a nature-based co-op. So it's really just to get the kids out in nature because we have the most amazing trails and parks here.
Yeah.
And so it's to get the kids out in nature and really build connections and relationships, like deep friendships with these kids.
Mhm.
And that's the co-op that we're in right now. It's just basically like play dates.
Yeah.
The play date.
And
So
how much time does it realistically take to homeschool?
we probably do it for an hour a day.
Really?
And not every day either, because life happens, right? And we don't really take the summer off like we do it all year round
Okay.
because we do take December, we go travel to Texas for a month. So we won't do it when we're there. Or if we go on vacation, we won't do it, obviously. But it really doesn't take long. You would be amazed at how much kids absorb and how much they understand and can take in when you go at like their pace. But even just them being able to get up and walk around is so much different than them sitting in a chair for 8 hours a day.
Right.
But it really doesn't take long, and both my kids they read really well, they can write, they love math. So, we really love it.
Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah, definitely. Because that's the thing I try to figure out is because you hear a lot of different feedback depending on who you talk to. And there's just so many different programs and ways to do it and all that type of stuff. And frankly, it can be a little overwhelming when you're looking into it as to, oh my gosh, like where do you even start with this? So that's interesting. So can you just give a glimpse as to on one of the days that you are going to be working with your children? What does that look like?
So you wake up, we usually have breakfast first, and then so my 8-year-old is in second grade, he's doing second grade work right now, and then the 6-year-old is doing kindergarten. I usually start the older one we usually do language arts first, and I'll sit with him and do that while the other one does handwriting or something that he can do on his own.
Mm.
And then I flip-flop, so each unit has a lesson and then a independent practice. So while one of them is doing independent practice, I sit with the other one and do the lesson. And then that's how we do it. And then, of course, the toddler is just there, usually trying to mark all
Everything.
over their paper with a marker. But that's how we do it. And again, it doesn't really take very long. And then on days where we have a lot going on, I usually have them do at least some handwriting while they're listening to an audiobook or something. But again, it's not a whole lot. And I think the big thing is people think they have to create the school environment at home.
Right.
And that's really not what you have to do at all. And that's hard to get that out of your brain because especially if you went to public school, you're like, okay, so we have to sit here and do
Right.
this in order. But yeah, you make it what you want it to be.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That sounds actually pretty good.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun. And then we read books together, of course. as part of it too.
Very cool. All right. Excellent. So basically be a master at multitasking and time blocking.
Yeah,
Excellent. Excellent. No, that's really good. Thank you for sharing that.
for
And
sure.
so let's talk a bit about your faith journey then. So as I touched on in the beginning, I think you said in November that you came to Christianity and put your faith in Jesus Christ. So take us through that. Did you grow up in a Christian household or just, take us through the whole thing.
Nope, I did not. I grew up in New Jersey. I moved to Texas when I was 6. So I was born in New Jersey. And I do remember being little and we would go to church on Sunday with my grandma. And then we would have spaghetti dinner. We were an Italian family. But aside from that, we didn't talk about God or the Bible or anything in my house. And then we moved to Texas and then we really didn't talk about anything. I think my mom tried taking us to church one time and was offended by someone or something happened. And so she just wrote it off and then we never went again. So fortunately, my parents still instilled very good morals and qualities in me, I believe. But through life, I've always felt like I've been seeking or searching for something else.
Mhm.
And so I really, after I had kids, I really was like, okay, I need to figure out what I believe because what am I going to share with my children and what do I want to instill in them, right? So I did find that really what I believe was so much aligned with what the Bible teaches and with Christians who I spoke with. And I was like, well, then maybe this is where I need to be. And so I searched a while. Ryan actually grew up in a Catholic household, but he separated from that in middle school. And then he had a weird journey into adulthood. So
Okay.
I always felt he would never be on this path with me. And he really surprised me. And I was like, that must be God that like opened his heart to being open to even potentially becoming Christian. And now we both were saved in November. So just again, I just really reached out to people and talked with people and asked a lot of questions to my friends who were Christians. And we attended church. We church hopped a little bit to see what we liked and how it felt. We're actually part of a very large church, which I never thought I would be a part of a large church because they sometimes get a bad stigma about those.
Mm.
But it's been amazing. Yeah, I love it. It's a great church. It's palpable. Like when you're there, you can just feel the
Right.
Holy Spirit. Like it's amazing. So that's been our journey. I just really was seeking something and I knew that it wasn't tangible. Like it wasn't in front of me, but I knew it was something there that I needed to find.
Mhm.
And so it took me several years to really like get there. And I had many friends like approach me through those years, like just fostering that and giving me books and answering my questions and everything. And just kept coming back to God. And so here we are.
What do you think it was, or was there, anything in particular that kind of made you say, okay, now in November, now I'm ready to commit myself? Or was it just the natural progression of things and you said, okay, yeah, it's about time?
I think it was a natural progression of things, but also it was like, okay, like some things really aren't logical. Like you just have to have faith, right? Like you have to just either you have faith to believe or you have faith not to believe. There's just both, or there's the same amount of faith, whether you jump into believe or whether you don't believe. And so it was like, I can't like logic my way into this really. I had a hard time, my head catching up to my heart. And
Mhm.
so I was like trying to get out of my head about it and what I felt.
Mhm.
And so I was finally like, okay, I'm just going to get out of my head. And in November, that's, really what happened. The pastor was just talking about giving your life to Jesus and if he's speaking to you right now. And I just was like, just felt overwhelmed. And yes, I just need to do this. And so that's what I did.
No, that's excellent. What church do you go to, if you
Uh,
don't mind?
yeah, we go to Cross Church in Rogers, Arkansas.
Okay. Got it.
Mhm.
Is it one, I know you said it's a larger church, but is it one that has an actual on campus or in person pastor, or do they broadcast it? Okay.
Yeah, I think that, yeah, they have several. And the primary pastor is there. They have 3 campuses. And so on Sundays, he goes between all 3 of them.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, no, and I think with the churches, there's a place for every type of church, for each type of individuals. And I think even like in one person's journey, their taste in church may change as well. And I think oftentimes like the bigger churches are good ones for getting started in, especially if you have children and stuff like that, because typically they have really good kids programs and things like that. So it's very easy to get the family in and they have small groups and things like that. And then sometimes they're great and you stay with them. And sometimes you end up wanting a smaller one, more intimate setting later on and that type of thing. I think all the different types of churches are excellent. There's a place for each one in everybody's journey. I'm glad you found one that suits you guys and is really helping you guys along in your journey right now. So that's excellent.
Yeah. Yeah, we love it. It's a great place. A really
Yeah.
great place for kids too.
Yeah. And you mentioned that you were having a hard time with your head catching up to your heart. And there were some things that you couldn't make sense of the logic with it. And you just had to trust in faith. What do you mind sharing what some of those things were?
Oh gosh, I don't think I can't even remember because it was like we would read passages and it would be like, okay, but really that was real? That happened? Just being like, because I didn't grow up learning that. So it's like having to reorganize my brain or reteach my brain this because everything when you're growing up, at least for me, when I didn't have the religious background and I just had the public school because I went to public school. So it was just all secular and like the whole evolution thing. It was like in my old brain, it was like, oh yeah, that made sense. And then in my Christian brain, it's no, we did not evolve from monkeys. That's what I had to deal with. Just what I grew up learning and knowing was not really true.
Yeah. No, and it is hard because, yeah, especially if you do go to the public schools, yeah, you're pumped with the secular mindset the whole time. And you can't share religion. You can't share your faith, especially if you're a teacher. You can't get any of that stuff across. It's unfortunate. That's the way it is. But there's lots of great resources out there now. The beauty of technology today with anything. But there's so many great resources now in apologetics centers and books and things like that help overcome these relatively common objections, so to speak, with Christianity and of course evolution being one of them. But what is it called? Is it the Creation Institute? I think it might be just creationinstitute.com. But that's a really great resource. And they go through all these things and in really great detail. It's all science backed because that's the other thing. A lot of people think you can believe in science or you can believe in faith,
Right.
that they're mutually exclusive. And it reminds me of, I don't know if it's a stupid movie, but it's funny. Have you seen Nacho Libre? Have you heard of that movie?
I've heard of it. I did not see it, but I've heard of it.
It's stupid humor, but it's funny. We actually named our youngest son off of one of the characters in that movie. But it reminds me of one thing is that there's these two luchadors, Mexican wrestlers, and one is in the church by day, and then the secret wrestler at night. And then the other is this guy he met on the street that they partnered up with. But anyway, the point is that the one in the church, he's always trying to convert the other one. And his objection is always, no, I believe in science. You know? Then eventually he does convert.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
it
that's true.
reminded me of that because, yeah, it's so mutually exclusive. But what I found in my journey is that the more I actually looked into things and these quote unquote objections, it becomes almost, I don't want to say impossible, but it takes a lot more convincing to believe the secular side of things than it does the, I guess, religious or faith-based side of things. Just especially with evolution, that you just look at the actual data, look at the actual facts in it, and you will see that, gosh, it really does not make sense at all. Evolution just does not make sense at all. And the fact that there's still in modern day textbooks in public school and colleges, they're still teaching things that have been proven in the secular industry, proven as non-factual, but they're still teaching them these lies. Right. And it's sad because most people just take it at face value, right? Most people are not going to dive in and do the work and do the research to see. They're going to just take what school tells them, society tells them, the headlines tell them, right? And I think that's the great fallacy, not only in secular, but also within Christianity as well, is I think a lot of people just don't dig in and they don't research and do the due diligence because I'm pretty firm that if they did, they would start to realize that it takes, in my opinion, it takes a lot more faith to be a non-believer than it does to be a believer. And people just need to look And that's how my journey was. I grew up an atheist, and it wasn't until my mid-20s or so that I ended up coming to faith. And frankly, it was through ultimately sitting down and reading the Bible from front to back. And then after that, just saying, wow, this actually makes sense. A lot of this stuff actually makes sense. And then reading books about apologetics and some of these common objections and things like that to get the other side of the story. So I encourage everyone, believer, non-believer, give it a try. Right? It can't hurt to read the Bible. Let's put it that way. It can't hurt.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah. And for anybody that is searching, like you mentioned that you felt that you were seeking, but you didn't quite know what would you say to somebody like that? What would you encourage them, or any suggestions for them?
Specifically for Christianity,
Yeah.
I think, like I said, I really think just reaching out to other Christians who are friends with, admire. I have I have most amazing friends, but there's one friend in particular who really she just epitomizes, like, she's just amazing. And so she was really a really big part of my journey, just letting me always texting her, asking her questions. She always, like, she gave me books that she borrowed. She invited us over for meals, like, just so that we could ask questions and really talk with her. And it was, and her husband. So just reaching out to people was a big thing for me. And then also, like, talking with Ryan as well, because he really is the analytical mind. Like, he is the researcher, where I try to research stuff. I'm not the best at it. I'm better if someone else does it and then, like, talks to me about it. And this is what was found, and this is what I think. And that was another big part of it. Like, I knew that if he did that research and he found that and believed it, then it was like, then yeah, I mean, yes, it must be true. So doing research, just being curious, being open-hearted, and just being open-minded,
Yeah.
because that was another big thing. I'm sure my parents can't believe that I'm a Christian now, and probably other people in my family. They're supportive and everything, but I'm sure they're like, what happened? So just really, I think really reaching out to people was my biggest thing.
Yeah. No, that's excellent. I think as you continue on in your journey, especially, and I think the cool thing is you can start to look back and see those seeds that were planted along that
Yep.
at the time you don't realize, or you may even resist, but later on you see, oh, wow, okay, I can see the path.
Yeah.
Taking me here.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Cause I had another group of friends who still is into, like, the crystals and oh,
The new age.
yeah, that, I guess maybe, yeah, that kind of stuff. And so I was drawn to that because it was like, I'm seeking something. Okay, my friends are doing this, but I was like, that doesn't really feel quite right. And so I kept getting pulled back this other direction.
Mm-hmm. No, excellent. I'm glad you did. Excellent. Jen, thank you very much for sharing your story. I appreciate all the tips. And I know I got some great information on things here, and I'm sure our audience did as well. So as we wrap it up, we always like to ask our guests to leave our audience with 3 actionable or practical tips based on what we talked about. So what would those be?
So I think in general, especially for business, surrounding yourself with like-minded people who are doing things you want to do is one of the biggest tips I could leave with people. You don't take advice from someone who doesn't have their own business and has never started their own business, because they're not in your shoes. They don't know what you're going through. But really surrounding yourself with people is the biggest thing. And then building a support system of some kind, whether that's for business or personal or both. Like I said, I have a babysitter who comes and helps us, probably going to be hiring a cleaner to help me in my house. And then business, building a team of people to help support you. And then another big one I think people might be afraid of, but they shouldn't be, is to invest out of state. So don't be afraid to invest out of state. It might sound scary that you're like thousands of miles away from a property, but you can build teams and systems that can support you anywhere.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. Absolutely. Excellent. If people want to reach out to you to learn more about you or get in touch with you about managing their property, what are the best ways?
They can find me on Instagram at STR Simplified or at Stay Sejora, which is our business Instagram.
Excellent. Excellent. Be sure to check out Jen and her business. And if you do need any help in these markets that she's in, be sure to get in touch with her. And Jen, thank you so much again for joining us.
Thanks so much, Kale. I appreciate it. I had a great time.
Thank you. All right.